The police always come. Police come. The last time didn't come a lot, but the first time come a lot, and they say that we can even come to enter to try to understand what happened, but we were already inside. So the police come. The demolition is very violent because the police do a curfew, and also you have people that go home, go work, and when they come back, they don't have home.
Hey everybody, this is Laith Marouf from Free Palestine TV, and we are in the neighborhood of Bairro Santa Filomena, which is part of the capital, Lisbon of Portugal. Before we continue with this report, I ask you to press the subscribe button on whatever social media platform you're watching this on, and to go to our website, freepalestine.video, to donate so we can continue bringing you this content. Today we have with us our returning brother, Flàvio Almada. Habibi, thank you for joining us. And we're here because this neighborhood is under threat of complete demolition using bulldozers, and there's already parts of it that were demolished. Let's inform the people about this story. When did they begin demolishing this neighborhood?
A few years ago, they started to demolish the majority part of the neighborhood, and the municipality of Amadora, they promised to the rich people that they sold the house there. They said, no, we will not buy a house next to these people, black people and poor people of the neighborhood of Santa Filomena. So they fulfilled the promise. They demolished the 9% of the neighborhood.
This whole area was buildings here?
Yeah, used to have a buildings here, there, and we used to have a party there. We used to have a place to play football there, and there's used to be a gym, and there's used to be a kind of association cultural center. The last part, the demolition that was next to one church, it was the house with the wall mural of Família Cabral. Yeah, they demolished it. And now, since Lisbon become a kind of hotel for rich people, so they are expand to the periphery area. So they are repeating what they did back in the days, because these people that built this neighborhood was to, most of them, expel for the center of Lisbon, like Cova Da Moura also. So now they are come again to expel these people to go to another periphery of periphery. So they want to demolish this area too, and also they demolish another neighborhood next to the metro tube center, because they want to build an area that is a strategy for Amadora, that will be the face of Amadora. So they remove people. All the people, children, they let people without a house, and they relocate some people for so far.
Let's walk through the neighborhood and see the conditions. You know, we were in your neighborhood filming earlier, and you said also your neighborhood, there's threats to demolish it.
Yes.
And I saw a video of this politician. This looks like a crazy person who's in a bulldozer.
Yes.
It's for her campaign for election that
Yes.
she's promising to demolish these neighborhoods.
Yeah. So this video is what makes us connections directly with the what happened right now in the genocide that the entity of Israel is committing in Palestine, because we are researching to find out that the Israel using bulldozer with the guns machine, and they are hiring people just to demolish houses of Palestinians. And we see the connection directly, because this right-wing person that is called Susanna, this crazy person, he made a video, he used the same language, but in the same time, in the same moment of a campaign, the another right-wing fascist party use the same language of erasing, clean up, that the Israel entity is using against Palestinian people. So we can see the connection, how the naturalization of normalization of the genocide is become internalized by some people from the ruling elite and the white supremacists.
That's basically, a lot of people don't understand how these crimes that are happening in Palestine out in the open, with no one getting punished for these crimes, and us seeing video after video, and then the people doing these demonstrations and not being able to change the politics, how that actually normalizes it in the core of the empire in places like Portugal, and now with the situation of the immigrant communities, the people that are from former colonies of Portugal. Do you think now that they are starting to do this in a place like Portugal, that this could be happening in other places like France, in the United States, where this will become also normalized?
I think it's already normalized in France and in the United States, for what I read, because the Cape Verdean community in particular, we were spread in different parts of the world because colonization and the colonial epidemic fame. So we exchange experience. You know, in France is like Zionist, like France is the Zionist another home. So the way that police killed Nahel in France is another example. The way that they are create a law to chase Masjid, the mosque, to illegalize or to criminalize a organization that is organized demonstration in favor of Palestine. The way that the police go to the Bairro, and intimidate people is another example. The way of deportation and the camps for Roma people. So in France is already naturalized. In United States, the ICE is the one expression that you see that the people were kidnapped in the home, be deported. People that now they are trying to create a law to remove citizenship to a lot of people because people are protesting. So in the United States you have a lot of things. Killing black by police, go against Chicano people or Latin American people, chase poor people, the naturalization of mass incarceration, and the language of the Crusader language. It's like we are in the war against alien, and who is classified alien. It's not different for what the Israeli Zionists are saying about that chosen people, bullshit, and the other people must serve them to instrumentalize a lot of stuff historically in order to naturalize, to create, to continue the genocide. So I think in France it's already happened. I think in the United States it's already happened. I think it is happening in other parts of the world because we have immigrants being killed in the borders of the European Union.
Mm-hmm.
We have the genocide in Sudan, the catastrophic humanitarian crisis. We have in Congo, we have a different part of Somalia.
Yeah. So two things that you mentioned there and ring in my mind. One, you mentioned the people that are dying in the migration in the Mediterranean, and it always flashed in my mind the cross-Atlantic slave trade and the millions of people that died in the waters trying to being taken by force, and then I remembered also when you mentioned these demolitions that they were already happening some different ways. I remembered what happened in Philadelphia in the 1980s when the Philadelphia police threw bombs
on the move.
On the move, exactly. And so maybe this new generation that is going to be watching this they will now connect to this history that is continuous of abuse of peoples by the colonial imperialist powers. And one last thing, you mentioned ICE and the forced deportations, and I remembered the leadership of the revolt in Salvador against the Brazilian Empire, the enslaved people that revolted, and how they were deported, the leaders.
Yes.
That was the first ever deportation from the New World back to the Old World. It seems like hundreds of years of uninterrupted abuse.
Yes, because you mentioned the bomb, when they bombed the move that people like John Africa and some Africa, Mumia Abu-Jamal used to part too, link Pan-African and others, they used to use the surname Africa. And they bomb me and they kill children, they kill a lot of people. They would go with the helicopters, they bomb. And and I was reading that some universities of Israel was studying the bones of Palestinians. And it was not surprised that, if I'm not mistaken, some university of the United States was studying the bones of the people that died, not just in slavery, but that were bombed when they bombed the movement, the move as an organization.
Yeah.
And also the empire, this empire is as racism, white supremacy, imperialism in code. So now I think that now is almost dying. It's become more dangerous, more visible in terms of violence, because the deportation, the slavery, the transatlantic slavery, the chattel slavery never ended. It became more covered, because in terms of the United States, they even changed the law, 13 amendment, if I'm not mistaken, to put people in prison. Until now, the slavery, the afterlife of slavery, is a naturalization of killing black people in the United States and other poor peoples, and then naturalize it like he was. You have a kind of social death, nobody cares. And the question of Brazil is the social formation, or historic formation for Brazil, with slavery and extermination of so-called Indian First Nation. Brazil is a state that was built with a contradiction to eliminate to genocide original people from Brazil, and still they are still killing them, exterminate that, like they are creating provoke a genocide for black people in Brazil too. And I just want to remember that a few months ago, the police went in favela that were very influenced by Israel, by Zionists, because you have a Christian Zionist in Brazil that with some organization side in favela that appeal to burn black people that practice faith from African religions. And then the police went there in one community and killed almost 128 people. And it normalized, and the genocide normalized. So this story never repeat, but it come a resemblance to the things that look almost like the same. And but regard the deportation of the African people that revolt because they were in the condition of slavery, I think there's a kind of a history that we need to isolate and to amplify it, that even people in the chattel slavery in the condition, they never lost their dignity in terms to fight. So this is very important, that things will not be a miracle, that the the rebellion is necessary when we needed to breathe, to have a space to move, So the deportation that now come back to Europe and United States is not new, because when a lot of African people from North and South fought for France during the first war against Germany, a lot of people was sterilized by the Nazis, and then it has a huge campaign to deport them to African continent. And even France did too in the Second World War, when the Algerians, the Burkinabés, and other peoples from the African continent fought from Martinique. In the day of the victory, the Charles de Gaulle received a call from the United States, say, don't put the blacks on the front and the Arabs from Maghreb on the front. So he kicked them out. So they deport a lot of people. So the deportation.
And in fact, also in Algeria, the day after the World War was declared ending, and the Algerian soldiers asked for their rights. Algeria killed 40,000 of them in a span of days, just to make sure that these soldiers, Algerians, don't actually get their rights.
Yeah.
Tell us about how violent the demolition of this neighborhood was. Was there a use of police forces as the demolition was happening?
And the police always come. Police come. The last time didn't come a lot, but the first time come a lot, and they say that we can even come to enter to try to understand what happened, but we were already inside. So the police come. The demolition is very violent because the police do a curfew, and also you have people that go home, go work, and when they come back, they don't have home.
Wow. So they demolished the homes with everything in them.
Everything, and sometimes the last time, if you last week, someone, a worker, went to a job, and when he came back, he didn't have a place to stay, and he was saying that he lost his stuff, he lost his document, his money, his other things that he had, even the food. You see something in the freezer, you see the food, you see other things. They completely destroy, they demonize the people in the sense that you see there's a kind of a naturalization that is linked with the historical process of violence and the resistance that we have been subjecting inside the empire and outside.
There was some militarization. You were talking, I think somebody mentioned something about snipers.
Yes, in a few years ago, when they demolished the neighborhood of Santa Filomena, we come to find out that a guy, a soldier, that was part in the crime against humanity, that they killed Iraqi people. He was a sniper. He went to Iraq as part of some team contingent of part of NATO, OTAN, something like that. He came back. He was on the roof with the gun. When police, a lot of police, we have pictures. He was do what police does, that is defend the rich people in order to have a demolition. But the sniper is not the first time that we have seen in our community, because yesterday, make almost 12 years after Omo, they killed Bruno Seidi. Bruno Seidi was 16 years old. He was from 6 de Maio, another neighborhood that they demolished. So the police went to the neighborhood, picked him, and took him to the police station and beat him. And 2 days later, he died. He was 16. So the people started protesting. So the sniper come, and even with the ready infra on
people's body, with a laser pointer.
And joking. And this kind of militarization we haven't seen, because when they do the NATO conference that Barack Obama come, they bought some armored vehicles. And the time say No, it's not for conference, it's for us. And a few weeks, if I'm not mistaken, later, they come with the armored vehicle inside our community and the other community that is Casal da Moura. And right now I think that the level of repression will increase because the contradiction that we have a global and internally with more inequality, with more suffering, with more people without housing, they will militarize more police and come with the drones and stuff like that.
When we're mentioning all these things, it seems like everything that was happening in the 1600s and the 1700s has now come back into fashion. People being killed in mass on boats in the waters, mass deportation of anyone that is undesirable, mass killing and raping, chattel slavery in the United States, in other places where you're forced, even here, I hear that prisoners are being forced to do work in, that is dangerous stuff, like in the United States with the firefighting and in the fires. And now, this normalization of mass genocide, and people are still not understanding how bad we are in the situation because of the collapse of the Soviet Union, the destruction of the anti-colonialist movements, and the assassinations of our beloved heroes. And inshallah, all of our communities looking at the resistance that is happening in Palestine, in Lebanon, in the West Asia, in the Sahel region, in Latin America, Central America, will have the inspiration to resist again en masse, like the empire is killing us all around the world, inside the empire, outside the empire, that we will also resist it everywhere. Flàvio, thank you so much for giving us this lesson. People that are watching must understand that what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in Lebanon is going to come to all of us. It's already coming to all of us. And we need to look at these instances in our countries and connect the dots so we can resist and succeed in defeating these efforts to enslave all of humanity. Thank you so much, Flàvio.
Thank you.
Keep on watching Free Palestine TV. Until we see you next time, we wish you all a world free of imperialism, Zionism and colonialism.
Death to imperialism. A luta continua.